Welcome to the Life Makeovers podcast. My name is Cindy D. Whitmer, and I am the Midlife Makeover Coach, helping you turn your midlife into your best life, one step at a time. Through powerful conversations, my own midlife roller coaster story, and over 3 decades of helping people transform their lives through counseling and coaching, I am on a mission to help you create your own definition of success and happiness. Thank you for being here. Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Monday. The Mondays sure roll around fast, don't they? I hope you had a great weekend. And today I thought I'd start us off with a pretty tough subject for a lot of people. Well, I think for all of us, and that is grief. Grief. Yeah, grief. So, grief is a response to any loss. But what I'm thinking about is the specific loss related to the death of a loved one. Okay, I'm your coach. I'm here for you in the good, the bad, the ugly, and the very difficult. And I think that grief, losing someone to death in our lives that we're close to, is one of the most challenging things that we as humans are bound to face. And sometimes, many times, we face this, right? And by the time we get to the middle of our lives, it's very likely that you have had to endure the loss of someone that you love through their physical death. And, there's just nothing like it. There's just nothing like it. So it's been 10 years this week since my father died suddenly. I can hardly believe it's been a whole decade. I can remember the night I got the phone call, just like it was an hour ago. And he had done some yard work and things. He lived by himself at that point in his life, and he'd gone in and sat in his chair and had a heart attack and died at age 69. And 3 weeks before that time, he'd had a perfect physical and was kind of bragging about what great health he was in. So it was really a shock. It was really, really, really a shock. Anyway, that's probably been my most traumatic experience directly with the death of someone. I've lost all my grandparents now, of course, at this point, although I had them for a really long time. And I lost several of them in just a few years. And anyway, which is a whole other thing when you're dealing with multiple losses at one time. But anyway, so I just want to, for the boost this morning, to just give you some love around grief. So if you're grieving the death of someone that you love, please remember that there is no timeline related to grief. There is the 1-year myth, which you'll hear about, and people will tell you lovingly, if you can just get through the first year, da, 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 da. And, for some people that is true. They get through the first anniversary, they get through the first birthday, they get through the first, Father's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas, whatever's important, significant dates, your wedding date, their death date, all those significant days you relate to that person that you loved who died. And sometimes when someone's gotten through the whole year, they go, okay, I made it through everything once, now it's going to be, now I know I can get through anything. And so it does seem to ease up for some. But for others, the second year can start and they expect it to feel better, but there's actually nothing magical that happens the 366th day after somebody you love dies. And so it can be very disappointing and disheartening and discouraging for some people to get into that second year not feel better and think, they're doing something wrong, or to feel more hopeless about their ability to get through this, and so forth. So, um, if you are grieving yourself, I just want to give you some love this morning and suggest that you be very kind to yourself and very patient with yourself, because no matter what your relationship was with someone, the grief can be pretty powerful. Like if you were conflicted with someone, actually the grief can be even more powerful than if you were super emotionally close and had a very positive relationship. I mean, the research is really clear about that. So we may have a lot of ideas around what should be easy and who should be hard to lose and who should be easy to lose and how long grief should last and all that, but it's really an individual journey unique to you. So, if you're grieving, please let yourself feel the feelings of grief. Avoiding grief will belabor it. It will not, you cannot ignore it. I mean, you can ignore it, but it's going to catch up to you in some way. So you must deal with your feelings. You must still deal with this loss. And you do that by, releasing your feelings in some way. For some people, it's venting their sadness, having a good cry, journaling it out, writing poetry. For some, it's being more physical, like exercising it out, using some kind of physical aggression in a healthy manner to release some of that pent up physical energy. For some, it's diving deep into a spiritual practice and leaning into God or prayer, meditation, yoga, chanting, whatever ceremonies or rituals are important to you. For some, it's, it can be all kinds of things. But the point is that it's okay to talk about the deceased loved one. It's okay not to want to talk about the deceased loved one. But you've got to acknowledge what you're going through on some level. And, I was a grief counselor for 9 years at a hospice many years ago, back when I lived in Iowa. And I went to all kinds of trainings. It's all I did for 9 years was help people through grief. And what I found was, and what the research said, and I was taught, was that, when people can find a way to express what they're going through, their sense of loss, the feelings that they're having, when they're able to talk about the loved one with safe people who don't expect a lot from them, but are there for them and accept them where they are. Essentially, when grieving people actively grieve, that is actually the best path through the journey and beyond it. And the other thing to keep in mind, and this is as an encouragement to you, not as bad news, but the good news is that, grief, there really is no so-called cure for grief. It doesn't ever really end, right? The thing is that we just, as we express it, as we deal with it, we learn to manage it better and better and better and better in our lives. So you don't have to forget about the person. You don't have to ever act like they aren't a part of you, or that they were, that your time with them was not significant. You don't have to do any of that. Just grieve, just feel it, and, allow yourself to express yourself in whatever way is important to you, whether it's very privately or or surrounded by social support. Whatever form of expression is really good for you. And then don't expect yourself to forget about the person or think you have to let them go completely. For sure, hang on to all the lovely memories and all the wonderful learnings from those relationships with those people. And then, yes, live your lives. Continue to live your lives. And know that you living a happy, healthy life without them here in the same way is not disrespectful to the deceased. they loved you, and they wish you, I would bet my life on it, they want you to continue on and be happy in your life and have a good life despite the terrible loss of not having them around in the same way. So that's my encouragement. And for those of you who are supporting someone who's grieving, you may not be grieving yourself, lucky you, but if you're supporting someone who's grieving the death of someone, please be a good listener. Mention the deceased person by name and listen to their stories. Let them tell their stories of their deceased loved one over and over again, or the story of them dying. Let them go over those details again and again if they need to. And just listen. You don't have to say anything profound. You don't have to pretend to have an answer. You don't have to do any of that. You can say things like, oh, wow, he sounds like he was so important to you. Or, oh, she sounds like she was so fun or so delightful. Or if you have direct memories with them, you might share some of your best memories with the deceased, with the person grieving the hardest. And then just say, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for your loss. Sorry, it stinks. I know you're hurting. I'm here, and just be a good friend. Just be present with them. Okay. And don't expect anything of them. They don't have to do it any certain way. The only thing I say about, whether this or that, because people would ask me as a grief counselor, they'd ask me, well, should I go to the cemetery or not? Or how many times should I visit in a week or a month or a year? What's it mean to be a good griever? And I'd be like, I don't know. There's no rule there. Like for some people, it was very important to connect to their loved one and express their grief by showing up at their gravesite. Now, we don't have as many of those anymore as we used to, but still there are some. And so if that's important to you, do it. If it's not, don't feel obligated. You don't have to show up, or drag yourself to the cemetery constantly. If it's not really how you want to express your grief. There's no right or wrong there. It's what is working for you the most. The only concern I have is, watch yourself. If you are chronically unable to get out of bed or function at all, or, go to work if you have a job, or if you're drinking too much or eating too much, or, turning to other vices, or, involved in self-destructive habits on a chronic basis since you've been grieving, and or you feel suicidal, then please seek help, professional help immediately. Otherwise, how you grieve, as long as you're not hurting yourself or hurting someone else in the name of grief, then just grieve. It's okay. It is part of the human experience. And the greater the love, the greater the grief. That's very most likely. When people are grieving and they say, oh, it just hurts so much. And I'm like, well, you loved them so much. That's why it hurts so much, right? So it's really a tribute to the relationship that you shared. So anyway, my love to all of you who might be grieving, and I'm sending my hugs to you and encouragement that life can go on if we let it. And I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Life Makeovers podcast. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast with those that you think would also benefit from what we're doing here. And I will talk to you again soon.